Good morning, Grace.
Hi, good morning. And good morning, everybody.
Yes. Welcome to our listeners and today's episode of Can You See What I See? Vicky Scott here, and today my co-host Grace Hart and I want to talk about awareness and how it can help us live our purpose. Oh, what do you think about that?
I think it's a good topic. That's what I think.
It's a big topic, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've heard so many people say, what's my purpose? Why am I here?
Yeah.
And they're questions that...
Because there's only one, right? You only have one purpose. You got to find it. Otherwise you're screwed, right?
Really?
No.
I was just going to say, I didn't think that was true for me.
But we do. But don't we do that? We think we're searching for this Holy Grail, this reason I was brought here for. Yeah. And what if it's not that complicated?
But that's what we have. It's very debilitating for us as human beings, isn't it? Yeah.
And it distracts us from our awareness.
Yes. Well, when I was thinking about this topic, I thought, well, it depends on all those things we've talked about in our previous podcasts, like boundaries, values, any traumatic event that maybe has got stuck in our body, the magic of us. I think all of that can lead us very quickly, all those experiences can lead us quickly to a specific purpose that we just know is for us. But sometimes I've found that we just let our head get in the way of trying to work it out.
Sometimes?
Sometimes, yeah, that's probably it.
A lot of the time, all the time.
Often.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as a result, we make life hard. So what do you think about purpose and awareness, Grace? Tell me about your experiences of how you came to realise your purpose.
Well, I don't think, as we just talked about, I don't think purpose is a one thing, and really, I guess for me, awareness and the willingness to be you, and as you said before, if you're in trauma or thinking too much or whatever, you can get distracted, and that's when you tend to fall into indoctrination. Like your parents might say this is what you should do, or society says that this is what your only options, and so when you're in awareness, to me, that is being on purpose. And it's a meandering, and it's not a one place, a destination that happens. And I think that there's too much, we put too much pressure on ourselves with that question, rather than just being the question, actually being in awareness and allowing it. I've got a funny story I can tell you about this.
Sure, go ahead.
She's like, what is she going to say? So, when I was when I was young, I was about 8 years old, I announced to my parents that I was a doctor and that my parents needed to go and get me all the books, because I was going to cure cancer, all the books from the library, and get me a doctor's coat, and all the gear that doctors have. So my mum was really supportive, and she found a doctor's coat, and she actually got a name badge that said, my name, Dr. blah, blah, blah. And then she went to our family doctor and said, do you have a spare stethoscope? And do you have a spare this and a spare that? And it was really lovely, really supportive. And so I looked at all the books that, and I was like, no, they just don't have it right. Anyway, I said I would like to get a microscope, and not a fun one. I want a decent one. And there was just this drive that it came out of the blue, and I wanted to prick everyone's fingers because I wanted to look at everyone's blood, and everyone willingly gave except for my middle sister. And she's like, no, I'm not going to give you my blood. And I was just a brat. I'm going to call the energy. I was just a brat, and I just kept going and going, and I became almost beyond annoying, and I wasn't going to take no for an answer. And so they actually said to my poor sister, just give her some blood. This is not going to go away. And so she gave blood, and I looked at it, and her blood was completely different to everyone else's blood. And I said, Mum, her blood's different. And they're like, oh, that's nice, dear, And I said, no, this blood is different. And they said, yeah, everyone's blood's different. I said, no. Everyone in the family, the blood looks the same, and her blood looks different. And I just, again, got really annoying and really bratty until I forced my dad to look at through the microscope. And Dad's like, oh, it actually does look different. I'm like, hello, I've been telling you this. And anyway, and then I said, you need to go to the doctor, to my sister. And they're just like, oh, no, because she was healthy. There was nothing wrong with her. And I was just this brat. And they just said, look, okay, we'll just go and get her chest tested out. Anyway, she had a blood bacteria that would have led to her death. So,
is that right?
But the reason I'm telling this story is my need to be a doctor just disappeared overnight. That was it. I didn't have the passion for it or the desire for it. And so I just wanted to say that's why, your purpose can be lots of things. Your purpose could be to smile at a stranger and they choose not to suicide that day because you noticed them. A purpose can be being an annoying little brat to save your sister's life. And so it's not a one-off thing. And I want to share another story really quickly. I met Vic a long time ago. And one of the things that happened was I went to one of her amazing events with stars, with Wendy and herself. And there was this exercise that they got us to do just to get the group kind of, connected. And it was basically just a hula hoop. We were all linked hands around a circle. And the request was that we have, I think it was 5 minutes for the hula hoop needed to go around the circle one way and then back the other way. And so everyone started talking about, what we can't step through it because, some people are bigger than others and, and I got this vision straight away, like, we don't need to move the hula hoop, we just move the circle. And I kept really quiet because I wasn't really part of the event as such. I was just there to, give feedback to Vic after experiencing it and that sort of thing. And so I kept quiet, and there was just this thing that was just growing and growing with me, and like, come on, guys, like, just move the circle. And it got to the point where there was only a few seconds left, and so I called out quite loud, hey, guys, we just have to rotate the circle. And they're like, no, that's not what they said we could. And I said, no, they didn't say that we couldn't do that. And so then it was like more frustration. And then I told the person to my left and to my right, and they just gave me their reasons why, no, that wasn't the rules. And I'm like, they didn't say that. And I was getting more and more frustrated, very similar to, the blood story. And then finally I just went, swear it, I'm not going to say the word. And I just pushed one side of the circle and I pulled the other. And then they noticed that as we were rotating, the actual hula hoop was going. And Wendy, who was leading that exercise, your partner, our business partner, she came up to me and she said, you're a leader. And then I just shrunk. And the reason I'm telling this story is to the listeners, how many of you have this energy in you, like, can't they see that? Come on, can't you look over here? What about this? And I just want to say to you guys, if, you've got that. You are a leader, and there is something you see that other people can't. And I really get that, as I said, it's not a one-off thing, that the purposes can be simple as your purpose in that moment just totally gave me a reframe on leadership and seeing myself as a leader that I never actually thought or stepped into before that. So that's my story. Stories, plural.
Yes, and they're very powerful because what they do is just remind us that it's in every moment, isn't it? When we're present with something, then so much information comes in for us that can, well, not just change our world, but change others. But you mentioned, Wendy, saying you're a leader, and yes, I would agree with that totally. But I'm also reminded about how each of us are leaders.
Yeah.
Some of us have been led to believe that unless we're a CEO or somebody in charge of a project, then we're not a leader, we're just one of the workers. Whereas, now with the wisdom of hindsight, I can see that unless everybody, like you did in that case, you actually you knew something that other people didn't. Now, if you hadn't done that, even as an 8-year-old for your sister, or even more recently, would your world and the lives of your kids look different from what it does now as a result of you stepping up and owning all of you. The magic of you, as we said.
Yeah, and when you talk about that you are the project, so you're a leader of your own project. You're a leader of your own life. And, if you're willing to lead yourself to, follow that awareness rather than, leading yourself to conclusion or going into judgment of you or overthinking things, if you actually led yourself through the lightness of being, I remember you talked about when you, purchase homes. Do you want to talk about that, the lightness for you? And
Oh, yes. Yeah, well, I suppose even just going back to when I was just turning 18 and I was in Canberra. I went down there from Brisbane for a job with the Commonwealth Government. And when I was there, a job was advertised in the Canberra Times for a personal assistant to the Governor-General. And I thought, I just got attracted to that advertisement. I thought, that'd be cool doing that. Anyway, I mentioned it rather lightly to a few people and they thought, oh, that's ridiculous, you've got to be much older than you. You're too young, you're this, you're da-da-da, you haven't got enough experience. And I went, yeah, I know, but if I don't apply, I'll never know. So I ended up applying and I got it. And I realised that afterwards it was very much a part of my journey because while I was there at Government House, I actually met my husband of now 46 years.
Yeah.
And each, as a result of that, I guess, and now just sort of what I have done is even things like buying a house. When I was really intentional, and Rich and I used to talk about, well, what do we want to experience? And, well, these are our 3 top criteria. And when we sort of went with that and then thought, yep, okay, this one feels it just felt light. It happened with Eden Grace. It even stopped somebody gazumping us on one occasion. Everything, the universe just seemed to line it up. So I am just conscious
I just want to jump in. What did you say with the house, what you wanted to experience?
Yeah, well, for me, it was like my vision. So, and Richard's vision. So we said we wanted north facing because we'd lived in a very cold house before that and we only saw the sun, once a year or something. And that was in Canberra, so that was a must. So we learned from that and we wanted it to be low set and we wanted it to be on the water and da-da-da. So when we actually thought about, okay, so every house we looked at, did it meet those 3 criteria? Which really narrowed it down to about 2 and in the end 1. So it was like, yep, thank you, we'll have that. So then we started talking about, well, how are we going to do this? But up till then, we didn't know either of those things. So it's funny, you can worry about the money or about something else first and then go from that. But really, my experience is the money will come. It will show up when you're intentional and you keep taking steps towards it, I guess.
I love that. I love that. You're talking about what you want to experience. To me, that is following the awareness, following the energetics. And what I'm loving is that when a home came up, you asked, does this match the energy? In other words, does this match the energy of the future, that the experiences that we would like to have, that we desire to have? And it's just, and that to me talks about your gut instinct, how brilliant it is, and your ability to see a future possibility. And then, I don't think we don't do it enough where we recognize every single choice either leads us towards the future that we know is possible or it doesn't. And the easiest way to work that out is exactly what you just said. It's the lightness. And, if does that person or that contract or, that home, is there a lightness to it? Does it match the vision or the energy of that future that we know we wish to experience? And that leads into what you talk about with the project. Your life is a project and it's a step-by-step, choice-by-choice. There's not just the one choice you make. And I thoroughly agree with you, the money side of things, or whether, no matter if it's money or you think you need people or whatever you think you need before you have that thing or choose that thing, it's really not about that. It's exactly what you said. It's just following the step-by-steps, and the people, the events, the circumstances will arrive as if by magic if you follow the lightness.
Yeah, it is actually true. And I didn't have any language around that, like you just explained. You vocalised that, but I didn't have that sort of language. It was just a knowingness, I guess, within me. But I also think, even though the house was right and everything was great, it didn't mean that we didn't have challenges while in the house. But it was almost like, okay, so now what? And now I really understand what you're saying about the future of possibilities. That's a language I hadn't thought of, but it is true, because it comes back to, in my language, it's, well, how do I want to feel when this thing called my life is coming to an end? So for me, and then of course the next generation's turn. So, and I do know that, when I did get into struggles in different parts of my working life and things, it was normally when I was trying to make something happen.
Yeah, force,
and
push. Yeah,
I know. I was just trying to force something, because often it was because I had a belief that, well, if it didn't happen the way that I thought it should, then I had failed.
Yeah.
And so I made it all about me and not being good enough, and, if only I had known more or done more or worked harder, then it would have been different. But
and that is like a reenactment of trauma, isn't it? Because, we've all had trauma in our childhoods, and at varying degrees, and that's how it can present itself down the track with words like that, and anxiety and things. Yeah.
Well, yeah, you sent me something the other day about social anxiety.
Oh,
and,
yes.
I know that's probably a podcast all on its own, hey, but, I also, was aware that just when I looked at some of the, the things that you can do when you have social anxiety as a result of a trauma that hasn't been dealt with, or acknowledged or diffused, I guess, or the impacts of it.
Yeah.
It's such a good reminder, isn't it? It's not about what happens to us, it's what that event, what happened in our bodies.
The interpretation of it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I remember in one of Peter Levine's books, he talked about, that line at the start of movies that roars?
Yes.
And for some reason, he had a client that had all this, panic attacks and all these terrible things. And when they actually went, through his process, that's what it was, And so it doesn't necessarily have to look like some horrific abuse. It can just be that a little kid looking at that big line and the roar going through is enough to create a post-traumatic body response. So, and that's what I'm saying. We've all got, mental health. And I think that's the unfortunate thing. And again, it's also fortunate, depending on what side of the coin, that we're starting to talk about it more, because for me, it's mental health. We all have mental health problems. It's a spectrum. And, we always have, if you have a time where you don't want to be on the phone, or you don't want to go out, or, you feel like you're inferior, or, you can't achieve your goals, or whatever it is, that's mental health. And a lot of people just think, oh, it's because I'm tired, or, oh, it's because of this. And and I'd love people to realize, oh, actually, this is something I need to look after myself with.
Oh, I have to laugh, really. Rich probably won't like me saying this. Oh, sorry about that, Rich, but I'm going to say it now. But he often used to call me a social pygmy, because he was being funny, but it was like I didn't want to answer the phone. It was and it did make me just I don't know. There were lots of. Sometimes I would panic when we're invited somewhere, and just all those symptoms that are actually social anxiety. Yeah. But for whatever reason, but I managed it because being part of the team, we were invited out a lot because of Rich's jobs, etc. So I actually found strategies for dealing with it, but the situation never really changed. It just I just learnt ways of dealing with it, I guess, and then you'd learn to, okay, there's some things you enjoy, and et cetera, et cetera. But I guess that also leads me to, it wasn't really, it made me very intentional on the sorts of social events that I wanted to attend to. So, that was part of my purpose as well, just saying, you know what, no, it doesn't feel right to do that.
Exactly. Having boundaries, being willing to have boundaries, and creating something that works for you. And, and humour, to giggle is, I mean, it's a beautiful thing. Giggling can change the world. But I do want to say, there's people out there that can make jokes on partners and things, but the energy is different to that we just spoke about. It's an energy of making you wrong, or I think we spoke a couple of episodes ago, or maybe last episode, about shaming with concern, or just be aware when people make comments like that it can be a genuine laughter, which is what was here, and that's bringing healing, but it can also be something that entraps you as well. So it's important to do that. But I love that you've worked on strategies, because that in itself is such a gift, to be able to assist people that have this. And I mean, I definitely have social anxiety. I don't like being in crowds or in a room. It's not fun for me. But at the same time, like you, it's like I also can be an energy where there's no problem to talk to thousands of people. So it just has to be in a way that it works for you. You don't have to go out there all the time with everybody, right? We have choice.
Such a good reminder. Hey, here we are both saying we have social anxiety, and we're
doing a podcast. Exactly, because it's working with what we work in with, Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. There's always a different way, isn't there?
Exactly.
But, just in closing, what do you think about some home play for this coming week?
What I would love is because we're talking about purpose and awareness, maybe some questions. And there's a great guy called Simon Sinek, and he invites you to find out what your why is. And one of the things he says is speak to, not an intimate partner, but speak to some good friends of yours, and just ask them, what is it about me that you choose to be my friend? And he says initially you'll get some sort of more superficial things like, oh, you're just fun to be around or whatever. But eventually, if you just keep asking them, you say, there's other people that are fun to be around. So what is it about me? And just, get them to sort of dig deep, and eventually they will say something that will make you tear up or make you get goosebumps or something like that. And that's a really good, quick way to find out what one of, your why is. And so to explain just very quickly about a why, what I suggest you do look up Simon Sinek's work. My why is to invite a kinder, happier world, so that people are safe, empowered, and inspired to choose greater. So that's my why. And so when I have friends, when I get into a contract with somebody or do something with somebody, that why has to be present. And so, for example, my work with Vicky with this podcast, it matches my why. It's allowing people, I'm inviting them to be kinder to themselves and others, and to have a happier life, and for you to know that you're safe, and empower you to choose something greater for yourself. So I think a really fun thing would be to just start to look at what could be your why, and then there's a myriad of purposes that will come up for you to say yes to, and that's what Vic talks about with the being the project leader of your own life. And what else do you think? Is there anything else that you get would be good home play?
I think just notice whether you have any social anxiety that might actually be stopping you living your life with joy. So, just have a think about what things you feel a little fear or apprehension around, and just ask a better question whether it's stopping you from doing what you really like to do. So that's anyway.
I love how you go, anyway, but that is gold.
Anyway.
That is gold, because when you have trauma, one of the things of trauma is you have invasive thoughts, and that can look like, I won't bother them, they wouldn't be interested, or your brain just sort of goes into all these thoughts, and that is actually trauma. It's not you know, a lot of people might think that's their personality, but it's not. It's actually the voice of trauma. So I think that's a great home play. Brilliant, brilliant.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to it, and I think we might consider another whole podcast on social anxiety, huh?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining me today, Grace, and thanks for creating greater.
Yeah, thank you, Annie. And everyone, please know that you can contact us at choosinggreater.com, and have a beautiful rest of the week till next Friday. Take care. Bye.